All right, here we go. And we are live. Hello, 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 and welcome to Intercultural Spark, that show about the spark inside you that drives you to spark change in the world through purpose focused businesses and life projects. Welcome to Intercultural Spark. All right. Hello, 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 and welcome. And this is a little bit different this week. We are actually pre-recorded. So while you are watching sort of live and in real time, we won't be able to respond to questions and comments in real time, but we encourage you to leave them in the comments because we will still get to everything as we can. And you're going to love our guest today. There is so much to learn with our guest today. Her name is Adrian Bracy. She spent 18 years in financial management with the NFL, including being the CFO for the Arizona Cardinals before coming back to St. Louis as the financial management for the St. Louis Rams. And of course, all my St. Louis friends are like, we're still mad. I'm still mad. Like, I still want to call it the St. Louis Cardinals. So that's going to happen during the show, Adrian. She then went on, spent more than a decade as the CEO of YWCA of Chicago, of St. Louis, very purpose driven. And she's now an author, a speaker, and a leadership strategist. But first, we are going to do this week's interpretive aerobics exercise of the week. This is an exercise that has been carefully selected to relate to the theme of our show. So I'm going to show it, and then we'll bring Adrian on and ask her to do it with me. This is a shoulder exercise. You can do it at your desk. You're going to start with your arms down, kind of at an angle, thumbs up, and then you're going to circle your arms all the way around until they come together in front of your forehead. So it's a big sweep. Arms are about probably an inch or two in front of your body, and you come forward and you come back. So it's forward, ending here, and back. Adrian is already doing it. Let's bring her on. Adrian, show us how we do it. Here we go. There you go. Right here. Yep, right there. You got it. And back down. So keep your mind on that. That exercise, you'll see it works your shoulders as you go up. If you come slightly back, it actually contracts your latissimus dorsi, so you get a little back work in there. But we're really looking at that shoulder into that flight forward and back. There you go. At the end of the show, don't forget, we'll circle back for you and anyone else who's watching. Throw it in the comments why we picked that exercise for this show. But actually, let's talk about you, Adrian. I was so excited. Adrian and I actually accidentally met at the airport, and she was on the way to do a talk for her new book. And the book is actually called Halftime. And so I was hoping, Adrian, you could start, because I got the idea that halftime could kind of be any time. Can you talk about how you use that and how that fits, I guess? How is that symbolic of your career trajectory?
Well, first, Deanna, I would like to say thank you for having me on today. It is such an honor, and I'm already having fun just watching.
Good.
Very, very exciting. So halftime was really a thought of mine when I was thinking about all the career transitions that I've had in my life, and not just career transitions externally, but even within the job. For instance, at the Miami Dolphins, when I first started, after a couple of years, I was at halftime, meaning I was ready for a change. I wanted to pivot, and that's really where halftime learn to pivot as a leader and identify next step came from, because I've had to do that throughout my entire career. And I ended up staying with the Dolphins. So although I was at halftime and there was a time that I needed to change and pivot, I didn't actually leave. So it doesn't mean you're leaving your career or your current job. It just means that you're going to reflect as a coach. So when a coach at halftime go into the locker room, they're trying to decide what's working, what didn't work. Do we need to make some changes? Do we need to make adjustments? And then they come back out. And so that's pretty much how I view this.
Oh, that's really interesting. You're right. So it's not like the idea of like, oh, I have to completely change and go someplace else. but to actually grow with leadership. And with you, there's clearly a trajectory of leadership across all your positions. And I'm wondering if are there certain, wait, can you just give us like the 3-point leadership tips so we can all be as successful as you? But is there something with leadership that's a theme that kind of goes across all that you do?
For me personally, yes. But most leaders have their top three characteristics or attributes for a good leader. Sometimes they're the same. One of my top is self-awareness. I just believe that a good leader must have self-awareness, because when you're not aware of things, how can you change them? So self-awareness for me is really key, because when I really understand myself, then it's easier for me to understand others. And so for me, self-awareness is going to be way up there. The other one I feel is really being disciplined, being able to be flexible, but still you can be disciplined within that flexibility. So for me, and that's just my style, my type. I'm a very disciplined person. When I set out a goal, I'm disciplined at that strategy or the action plan so that I can achieve my goals. So that empathy is another one that a lot of times people feel leaders are weak if they show empathy, and that's not true. To be able to put yourself in someone else's position, to me, is strength, and it allows me to be able to help the other person as a leader.
It's interesting. This was a few weeks ago. I was helping out the National Diversity Council in Chicago, did a webinar on women's leadership, and they were talking about vulnerability and whether leaders should show vulnerability. How do you see that difference between empathy and then actually, things where you might actually make yourself vulnerable?
Yes. So the difference for me is that, so when I think of empathy, I really feel that I am stepping into your shoes and really wanting to understand what you are going through as a staff member, or even a family member, a friend. So it's really me having, it's for me, it's beyond sympathy, because sympathy, you don't always feel what that person is going through. You just sympathize with them. But empathy is when I really, really put myself in your position. And sometimes it's hard, because as a Black woman, you can say, Adrian, I know what you're going through, but you're white and you really don't. But if you empathize with, okay, you know what, I may not know exactly as a Black woman that Adrian is going through this, but I really put myself in her position. And then you could really feel what I'm feeling. So that's kind of empathy. Vulnerability for me is what I did in my book, whereas I put
Cue
it all
book.
your book. Thank you. I put it on the line so that I can help others. So when I'm vulnerable, it's not for me to get sympathy or people to feel sad for me. No, it's so that I can help you. And by me being vulnerable, for me, it allows you as my colleague or my client to be able to have that trust. So for me, vulnerability can build trust, which is the foundation of a successful team.
So I have a question for you about that. Having been a CFO in finance in the NFL at a time, even now you could say it's a time right now where there's not a lot of women in those positions. How did that feel being a leader when you probably felt a little bit like an outsider, maybe not, or tell me a story about how you felt when you were there and kind of pivoted or framed yourself as a leader?
Sure. So when I first got into the NFL, I was controller for the Miami Dolphins and the Joe Robbie Stadium, which is the stadium that the Miami Dolphins played in. And so I reported to both the CFO for the Dolphins and the CFO for the stadium. And I was the controller for both entities. And I tell you, Deanna, for me, I had to get over lack of self-confidence. So that was the one thing. And that is one of the characteristics of a leader, is having that self-confidence. And so I had to build that. That was not something that just came to me. My husband, I really believe he was born with it. But me, I had to develop it. And so I felt that sometimes like I really didn't belong. And it was because of the my humble beginnings, because I came from a family with low to medium means. And I grew up in an area called Liberty City in Miami, Florida, which is drugs, prostitution, gangs. And so for a long time, I felt like I wasn't good enough. So I had to get over that.
So how do you do that? Stop on that for a minute, though, because it's really great to say, if you want to be a good leader, you've really got to get over that. It just doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work.
What worked for you to help you get over that?
So what helped me get over it, and I've made this plain to you, it is my faith. My faith is what I stand on. It's my foundation of who I am. And so my faith carries me when I'm feeling less than. And so it was my faith that really, I feel, that really propelled me to be the person that I am today. And from that faith, I was able to find a village, people around me who I surrounded myself with that I wanted to emulate. There were people women, the CFO for the Dolphins at the time, she to me was full of confidence, and I wanted to be like that. And so I always surrounded myself with people that that I admire, role models.
Did you ask her specifically to be a mentor, or did you just kind of naturally just suggest you guys hang out? Or how did you do that when you want to grow your circle with people that you really respect or want to emulate?
And so I did not formally ask her to be a mentor. And back then, you're talking like 91, 92, so forth. So the big word, the buzzword of mentor wasn't, or sponsor wasn't really talked about. Role models kind of was the word that we used back
What was
then.
it? Oh, role models. Okay.
Role models.
And role model is usually someone that you're watching from afar, not necessarily that's reciprocating, but you're watching.
Absolutely. Perfectly defined. So she was my role model, not my mentor. And I watched her. And from that, I said, you know what? This is what I have to do to be working in a male-dominated environment.
Sure.
I had to develop that. And so I did. So over the years, it wasn't overnight, but over the years, it was her. And then there were other women that I watched from afar to develop this skill, or have this characteristic. And one of my friends that I actually became friends with at the Miami Dolphins, she was also she was more of a mentor though, because she and I would talk, and she had been in the NFL for 6 years prior to me coming in. And so she would really, talk to me. I would be vulnerable to her to let her know, hey, I'm just feeling kind of, I have doubt and fear right now. And she would, talk to me and mentor me with that.
That's kind of so this is, I'm just going to share this. I only share this periodically. This is not something I started doing for followers. So I also, like, depending on faith, it's that idea of something outside of yourself. Sometimes I know for me, when I have to get around something, I need some sort of, even if it's contrived. So I have had an issue with a negative inner voice. Like my negative inner voice is so mean. And so I wanted to learn TikTok and I wanted to learn TikTok anyway. So I actually have shirts. One shirt says your inner voice. The other one says inner cheerleader. I started making videos with my inner voice talking out loud. And as soon as I did that, she kind of diminished. And I actually did a video where I said, you've been awfully quiet. She goes, yeah, well, I look like a complete jerk if I'm just walking around calling you names all the time.
Oh. That's a good strategy.
So I'll put that link to that. I'm actually blushing because I did not make these for anyone to watch, but they're fun. I'll put them in the show notes. Yes. That actually worked for me because by exposing my inner voice, what's interesting, so by exposing my inner voice and then realizing there was also this inner cheerleader, you know what the inner cheerleader was? And this is, it sounds like we're getting, it wasn't another voice. It was the lack of a negative voice. That positive energy was literally just not that negative voice sort of knocking me down. And what you're talking about feels like that, just proactive, confident leadership.
Absolutely proactive, intentional, all of that.
Mhm.
And that's good. I like what you said, because we all deal with it differently. And it's
Mm.
important for your viewers to not feel that this is a one size fits all.
Right, right.
So yes,
Mhm,
we all at some point in life. I mean, even the most powerful women that I know personally,
mhm.
I've spoken to them, and of course, they've had doubt, and they've had fear, and they've had lack of confidence at some point. But the point is to have that resilience and not to stay there, and
Mhm.
find a way to get that negative thought, that whatever it's narrative that you're telling yourself, out of your head.
Yeah, because there's really no space for it. So speaking of getting it out of your head, listening to what the world is telling you want to do, you made a huge halftime pivot from being, CFO and financial within the NFL to taking over as the chief executive officer of the YWCA of St. Louis. What drove you to do that, and how was that step into yet another sort of halftime pivot into another leadership role?
Well, of course, it was different. I
Mhm.
went from working in the NFL with deep pockets to working in nonprofit, hole in the pockets.
Mhm. Right.
And so that was a big change there. And then
Sure.
working from a boardroom with pretty much all men to working in a boardroom with all women, the YWCA
Mhm.
board of directors, the national guidance was an all female board.
Mm.
So that
Well,
was
because, and you probably, just in case you didn't say it, because their tagline is to end racism and empower women. So yeah.
absolutely empowering women, absolutely. And so that was a big change.
Mhm.
And the transition was more of, I feel, in my head, as we talked about earlier,
Mhm.
because the skills that I had were
Okay. Mhm.
transferable, and I had to make myself believe that. And
Yes.
that's
Yes.
yeah, that as that leader, you have to do that. And so that was, I mean, it was a
Mhm.
pivot, and it was definitely an adjustment, but it was worth it, because I made that pivot and that adjustment, that change, because of purpose and passion. So
Mhm.
around, let's see, now you're talking year 17, 16 in the NFL, and I started to
Mhm.
feel the desire. I was at halftime and I wanted to do something different. So I actually took a webinar by Stephen Covey called Writing Your
Okay.
Personal Mission Statement.
Oh,
And as
wow.
I wrote my personal mission statement, I was the CFO for the Arizona Cardinals football team. And in my personal mission statement, it included inspiring and enhancing the lives of women and girls. So
Mm.
my next career journey was going to include helping women and girls. And
Mhm.
within 8 months after taking that seminar and writing my personal mission statement, I heard about the CEO position for YWCA in St. Louis come about. And so
Interesting.
made that pivot, made that change. And that was almost a 12-year journey at the YWCA, following my passion and my purpose.
And that was writing. So that's interesting when you talk about, like, there's a phrase that says, "What is yours will come to you." I don't know if you've heard that kind of. I mean, it is somewhat in the realm of faith for sure. Because if you
Absolutely.
open yourself
Absolutely.
up,
Yes.
even I've heard with God the idea of just get out of the way. Like God knows what God is looking for you to do. Can you just
Right.
get out of the
Just get
way
out of the way,
so
Adrian,
that you can do it?
and have
Um,
faith, and have
mhm,
faith that what you're doing is the right thing. That that inner voice, that intuition that you feel, that is so strong, and you have peace about it. When people say,
mhm,
"How did you make that?" Well, because I had peace.
mhm,
When you have peace and you make that pivot and you make that
mhm,
change, when you have peace, is for me, is when I know that I'm on the right path. If
mhm.
I can't sleep at night, if I'm up all night, if I'm feeling uncomfortable, if I'm nervous, oh my God, then I have to really think about, am I making the right decision here?
Mhm. So it's interesting. I'm gonna go. You can notice. I know Adrian knows there's something that I want to share that I haven't, and thank you for not like prompting my sharing. So Adrian and I, speaking of, I'm not even gonna be able to say it. So what I'm leading up to is this is actually the last show that I'm doing for a little bit, because speaking of halftimes and pivots and things coming to you, I also am going to be moving from having had my own business for the last like 8 years into a position as the director of communications and outreach for Chicago's Office of the Inspector General. So I could not be more exciting. And it's like one of those things where it tickles like everything, like, it's like the watchdog for the city and justice and making sure that tax dollars are being used fairly and all these things that are really important for a city you live in. This boils down to a fascinating question. Adrian and I coincidentally sat next to each other at the St. Louis airport. I was off to a wedding with my mom. You were off to a speaking event for your book. And so, both of us, I think, looking like this is faith, sort of fate bring us together. What's fascinating, Adrian, is so you have been a long time big executive and you're now moving into having your own consulting company. I've been in a consulting company and a marketing agency for the past 8 years. I'm now moving back internally. So, a couple questions for you. It's the idea. Well, first of all, let's just go with, some people look at life as an arc. We're clearly both living life as a trajectory where you can always do something new.
Right.
How do you feel that with, have you had naysayers? Like, how do you just charge forward and continue to move on that trajectory?
Well, that's a good question. And I know you and I have talked about the generation that we're in currently. And for me, that has a lot to do with it. When I was younger, in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s, I really worried about what people said about me. I was concerned. Everything I did was like, do you think they cared? But now I'm at a point in age that I feel confident in my shoes, and I feel that I want to be that role model for other women. And so I'm able to make these adjustments, the pivots in my career and life, because I just don't feel that, for me, that I'm just supposed to stay where I am forever. And I could have stayed, I could have stayed in the NFL. I mean, I could have stayed with the Rams, whatever. But then I wouldn't have the experiences that I have now to be able to write a book called Halftime, because of all those halftime moments in my career and in my life in general. I was able to put it all together. And so it feels so good to be able to do that and to make those pivotal moments. And most people don't, because of fear. I've been there. We allow fear to keep us back and hold us back, and that's real. Fear is real.
Well, so is ageism, and so is things like, so is other people having control or saying things about you. But that's what I feel like too, that you've got to have that inner core. You've got to have some sort of core of essence of knowing who you are, because someone else's opinion of you doesn't change who you are.
Doesn't, unless we allow it to.
Right. Yes. So.
And I have, in my life, not now, but, in my 30s, whatever, if someone, I would, I wasn't authentic as I am now. Today, I'm authentic. I am who I am, and I love it. But, at my earlier years, no, I wanted to change to fit in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that is wonderful, actually, that actually the world has kind of gotten that way as well, in terms of really being more inclusive with different styles of leadership, understanding that diversity actually leads to innovation. So it's exciting to have kind of ridden that wave to now be part of the change that's happening, for sure.
Yes.
All right. Speaking of which, let's go back to, it is time to guess our flash exercise. Dun, dun, dun. So our exercise, as you recall, so at the time of the show, Adrian, so we did, and everyone, I hope you'll do this at your desk. You can start with your thumbs out to your side. You come around so that you're like in front of your forehead, and then you bring it back. And this is a shoulder move. You're using kind of the sides and tops of your shoulders as you come around. Why do you think I picked this exercise for this show?
Oh, you're going to put me on the spot. Well,
actually, the thing is, because it's interpretive aerobics, there are no wrong answers to this.
Okay, great. Okay, great.
In fact, if I like your answer better, I'm just going to go like, yeah, that was it. That's why.
Well, for me, I can tell you what I felt just that exercise was like it made me feel a little bit power. Like
yes.
I felt, oh my God, it's just open up, like the world is mine, it's yours. You've got all of this, and it's up to you how you decide to live it.
I love it. That is perfect. See, now I'm just going to pretend like I already thought of that and add it to mine. Yes, you're right. It's the power. And think about the power space. They always talk about women. Sometimes when we go into leadership, we're like, it's okay. I'm here. Yes, power pose. But I also, look how we end. We end like we're soaring like Superman. Off to save the world. To infinity. So yeah, that's why.
Woman.
Yes, exactly. Superwoman.
I thought of Superwoman and the power, that power.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I love that idea of just that forward facing, that long-term trajectory. Adrian, as we part ways, are there words of advice? You're such an incredible, speaking of looking for role models, you are so inspirational in the level of leadership that you've achieved. And now, going on with your book and being a strategist and helping others. Is there any quote or lesson that you got when you were kind of growing as a leader that really has stayed with you?
Well, the one thing I think I said it probably 2 or 3 times in the interview today was just having that confidence in yourself, that you're good enough, that you've got this, you have all that you need to be successful, but you've got to believe it first. You've got to have that self-awareness and that resilience and all of that comes along with being a good leader. But it starts for me internally, and that's what I would definitely leave someone with, just having that confidence. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Adrian Bracy, leadership strategist, author, speaker. She is the author of Halftime, Learn to Pivot as a Leader and Identify Your Next Step. I'm assuming available on Amazon and wherever you buy your favorite books. And for everyone else, I'm so grateful. This was like our 100 and something show. We have been with Intercultural Spark Weekly for 2 years now. I will absolutely miss you. We won't say goodbye forever, but I'm also excited to now get onto that next. I'm at a halftime, so perfect timing to connect with Adrian. Thank you all, and I usually end by saying we'll see you next week, but we will all see you on this adventure that we call life.
And I wish you all the best, Deanna. Your new endeavor, I know you're going to knock it out of the park.
Thank you. Wait, that was a baseball analogy.
I know. I just love sports. I love sports.
Touchdown. Thanks, Adrian. Bye-bye.